You show me your calendar, and I will show you your priorities. All right, I know that seems direct, that you show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities, but it's got some truth to it, especially when it comes to running a business. Your calendar will tell me everything about how you manage your time and what you do with your days and what you actually do, what actions you take throughout the day. And beautiful thing about people who actually have a calendar is you can go back and look throughout their whole past and you can see how they have spent their time or how they used to spend their time. I know that I can look back through my calendars and I can see all the different ways that I used to manage my time and how I've evolved in my time management just by looking at my Google Calendar for the last couple of years. It's kind of funny. I can look back to last January or last March and just be like, what was I doing exactly at that moment? So I'm going to introduce you to block scheduling and a few various other key components of managing your time. Again, this is a little bit of a recap on priority management tools and tactics. There's that in-depth training where I take you through the entire Designing Your Life and Priority Management Excel document, which you can systematically go through it and actually do it. At the end of the day, we can talk about priority management all day, but until you're actually managing your priorities, literally, it doesn't happen. So you can print out this guy. It's the Planning Life Goals, Time Management, and Block Scheduling PDF. So you can download that. I recommend you print it and then go through it. And that's what we're going to go through right now. So step one, which you've done already by this point, is to know your why. Knowing your why for what you do in your life. Knowing why you bought this franchise, why you have come in to develop it, knowing why you do what you do in every category of your life. So there's some kind of questions in here, and I like to just ask myself these questions, and then I feel into them, and I kind of just respond with the first answer that comes up for me. So the first question would be what are you living true to? What are you aligned with? And then I would feel into that and see what arises first without editing, no editing to the response, just what actually authentically comes through when I ask myself that question, right? So, what am I aligned to when I think into it right now? It's I'm creating, building my business is what I'm aligned to for the most part at this period in my life. So step one is knowing your why. So we got some more really good questions here. What am I committed to in my work, in my health, in my finances, in my family, in my recreation, in my spirituality, my personal development, right? What am I committed to? How will I know when I'm successful in a given category of my life? So really important if you're doing goal setting, how do you know what success is? The thing about our lives and about consciousness is that we're the ones who have to decide what it means to be successful in life. It's kind of the paradox of business in many ways, right? Especially as I've stepped more into my own personal and spiritual life, that's become a bigger question: is what is success? What does it mean to be whole and happy and complete? And until you get clear on that, you can tend to find yourself on a chase that can happen in business. So knowing your why do you do what you do? What does success mean to you? And, within our company, we have our personal why and our principles, and we want to be aligned to them. The next step is to list all the important areas of your life and all the different categories of your life and all the different categories of your goals. So, we may not always have goals in every category of our lives, but for me, typically, I've always had categories for goal setting in terms of finance. I've always had categories of goal setting for physical, my physical body stuff. I've always had goals for my companies and revenue generation. There have been periods in my life where I've had goals for expression and even dancing and stuff like that. But you have to decide. Some of the suggested categories I have here are work, health, finance and investing, goals for your family, goal for friends, goals for recreation and fun, travel goals, spirituality practices and those kinds of goals, personal development and educational goals. And you want to be able, if you're doing this through the Excel template, you want to actually break this down all the way, starting from 10 years. I think the best method is to start with your 10-year plan or beyond, and then you systematically work your way down to your 1-year goals. And all your 1-year goals should feed into the longer-term goals, or the long-term vision would be another way of looking at it. Step 2 is, or step 3 at this point would be to select the action types. So what I mean by that is there's certain things that you'll have to do in your goal setting journey and your priority management journey. Some things are things we do one time, and there are other things that they become daily disciplines or weekly disciplines. And we want to be clear on what are the things we actually have to do every day, every week, every month, versus things that are one-time actions or initiatives. So to give you an example, right now I'm building this video course. It is a 1-year initiative. It's not something that I'm going to have to do it every day for the rest of my life. It's something that I've made the commitment and sacrifice to create. And once it's completed for the most part. There'll be adjustments here and there, but like it's done. Versus things like daily reading is a recurring action. That's something that I do every day, and I've been doing it every day for years now. And that's a daily habit, a daily recurring action. For my success, it's not something you just finish doing and then you're done reading. That's not how it works. Or another way of saying education. Education is something that I do for the rest of my life. Every day I do a little bit of education. A weekly action might be would be like something like coaching. Every week I have a coaching session with my coach. That's something that I don't graduate from or ever finish doing. It's something that I do that is a priority for me in my life. As well, giving coaching sessions for my staff and for my team. It's important, and I have to do it once a week, a coaching session. So there's time allocated for that, and it's not something that'll ever fade away. If I have 6 franchises to coach or 6 coaching clients, that's 6 hours to 8 hours a week that has to be allotted and scheduled into my calendar permanently, basically until I'm no longer doing that type of work. So when we're building out all the different roles in the company, the franchisee has a whole list of different things that are one-time actions, weekly actions, monthly actions, and then yearly actions. Like business planning and strategic planning is something that needs about, between 10 and 20 hours each once a year in December. So that can get scheduled right into the calendar in December every year. It has to happen because of how high impact of an activity is. It's so important. So I can just literally put it right into my schedule for the next 5 years. And I know that that's what, I can move it around a little bit, but I know that it's going to take 20 hours a year to do this activity. And once you really start getting into high level priority management, everything comes down to hours. How many hours are allocated to what activities and how often do these activities reoccur? So in the Excel planner, if you're using the Excel breakdown system, you can actually select the action types. Is this a weekly recurring, a daily recurring, a monthly recurring, a yearly recurring, or a one-time action that only has to ever happen one time? Next is step 4, which is we want to prioritize. We actually want to give priority to all the different action types. So you got A priorities, B priorities, and C priorities. And what we call these is our rocks. There's a really cool video, which I've put in as a separate link in the training series, where Stephen Covey, who is the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he actually breaks it down like the full training on big rocks, small rocks, and little rock and medium rocks. But it's how we schedule. We want to schedule all of our A priorities in first. And if there's time for B priorities, then we'll have time for B priorities. But what we don't want is to execute on B priorities and not actually get around to A priorities. And this happens all the time for various reasons, whether it's like fear, or maybe there's a reluctance, you don't want to do the A priorities because they're more difficult. Who knows, right? But it happens all the time. It'd be a C priority would be like watching a TV show that I'm really into. For me, that would be a C priority, as I want to watch this TV show. But an A priority might be I have to sit down and write a new standard operating procedure for the company that's really important for the entire team. One sounds like a lot more fun, but the sacrifices is not worth it, right? Because now I'm going to execute on this C priority, which is to watch this movie or TV show, and forego something that's actually going to add a lot of value to my life and to my company, and ultimately free up my time for the future. So that's what this next step is all about, giving priority to your goals. So if I kind of list off, A priorities would be the big rocks. These are the most important things you need to do in life that are aligned with your biggest goals and your highest values. In business, these would align with your core deliverables of your job. So if you were working with teammates, everyone has their employment agreements, their core deliverables. Those need to be scheduled into that person's schedule. So if it's a production manager, he has core deliverables. These are his A rocks, his big rocks, A priorities. B priorities are the medium rocks. These are important priorities and values, but they're not as important as the big rocks. The company mission and principles or purpose and core values help us to clarify our A's from our B's, right? So in Colorcraft, we can differentiate A values from B values, and we can create A priorities from B priorities. And then once again, you want to expand this out when you're designing your dream life to being able to do this prioritization system in a more holistic way with all of our different areas of our life considered. And then C priorities, these are our little rocks. It's little, right? Little things we can squeeze in if there's time and we've executed on all the rest of our priorities for our week, year, month, so on and so forth. These are typically unimportant things that you could skip altogether if you wanted to. They don't really have much to do with your purpose and your highest values. C priorities. So it's still okay to write them in, because sometimes we do have time for like these slack things, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes the A priorities really do take a lot more energy to complete, and it's nice to have slack time to do other things, but we want to bring awareness to all this. That's the key here. Step 5 is to plug your life into your calendar. So once you've gone through this rigorous process of listing out all the categories of your life, all of the goals within each of these categories, all the way from 10 years to 5 years, 3 years, and 1 year, and then we can actually allocate whether these are A, B, or C priorities, and we can allocate how much time each of them takes for each category, for each goal. And with that all being done, with you can use the planning document in Excel to do this. Now we can actually literally go and schedule into our calendar all these different things based on whether they're one-time activities or recurring actions, right? If it's a recurring coaching session every week, I can literally just go in my calendar and then put it as a recurring action. And every week I know that it blocks out that time. And then I can make a very smart plan. Next step is managing your schedule with integrity. So what this means is making sure everyone is in alignment with the plan. So first off, ourselves is that when we look at our scheduled calendar, so once we've done this process and we actually look at the calendar that we've now created and built, does it feel right? Does it seem like we're actually going to do it, or is it a bunch of fluff and we're not going to actually do it? Like, this happens all the time. The plan's not realistic. It hasn't been well built, and then you don't actually execute on the plan and follow the schedule. So this happens all the time, is that the plan didn't make sense to begin with, and then you don't do it. So everyone needs to be on board with the plan. And if there's other people involved in these key priorities, they all need to be aware of what's going on, right? If I'm doing a coaching session with you at 3:00 on every Monday, you definitely have to be included in that plan, and you have to have it scheduled into your calendar. So I need to share that event with you and make sure everyone's coordinated, right? Or if there's team goal setting every morning at 8 a.m., the production manager needs to be aware of that. All of the job site managers need to be aware of that, right? Or if it's sales, all the customers have to be on board with the scheduled estimate times, right? Or, it gets quite detailed, quite meticulous, but learning to manage your calendar with integrity, that was step 6. Step 7, I'm really just going to speak to some optimization and scheduling tips and tools, basically. The first of which is blocking. So I'll read the definition for blocking. Blocking is planning your time in blocks of similar tasks so that your brain can get into flow states for the type of tasks that you're doing during that block. Switching tasks frequently takes a toll on your brain. So blocking means that we want to block out full areas where we're going to have undistracted time to just focus on one thing, right? Switching cost is very much a real thing. And it's funny, relating it to like even the painting industry or when you're painting a house, right? You don't want to be switching from spraying the house, then all of a sudden you're cutting some trim boards, then you're all of a sudden priming and doing some prep work. You want painters to pick a thing for the day, focus on one thing, and not waste time switching. And that's what blocking is all about, is reducing switching costs and the mental headache that happens with switching a task. For example, like when I'm shooting videos, I like to shoot a series of videos, like a whole section, and then I'll block that off for just filming, and then I'll have another task period where I'll block off just editing. I'm not going back and forth and doing this, then I go switch to that, then come back to this, then go back to, it's not efficient to do it that way. The next kind of trick or tool is called batching. Batching is when you put similar tasks together, and that helps with blocking. So for example, if you do all your phone calls together, if you have to run errands, go and run all your errands back to back. If you have a lot of work to do on the computer, do it all at once. So say you're a production manager, you should batch all of your calls into a 1 hour or a 2 hour time slot, and just do that all together versus being on the phone all day long. Or emails, right? We want to batch maybe our emails with our phone calls and do those two tasks together. And when you start really thinking about everything in that way, it just makes a lot more sense. Is I only am going to do emails at 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. My only 2 times, and at the same time is when I'm going to do all my phone calls and return calls and all of my follow-up calls. I'll do them all at 10 a.m. and 1 o'clock as well. Those 2 tasks get batched together. Next rule to be aware of is the 80-20 rule. So all actions are not created equal. Using the 80-20 analysis, you can identify what are the least valuable tasks that you do in a week and what are the most valuable tasks that you do in a week, right? So as an entrepreneur or as the franchisee, the least valuable task that I can really do is to go and paint on a job site or to go and drop off paint somewhere, right? These are not nearly as high impact as and value adding to the company as me going and doing an estimate and booking a $10,000 job. That is a much higher impact activity for my 2 hours of my time. To book a $10,000 job or to do 2 hours of painting and paint 60 feet of fascia board, right? There's an 80-20 principle to be aware of. And we're always seeking the higher ground. Is what is the most valuable thing I can do that will give me 20% what is the most valuable 20% that I can be doing and working on that will produce the highest 80% of the results. And then as we get more aware of this, we want to replace the least valuable with the most valuable and get more results in less time. And this is what entrepreneurship is all about. This is where the whole freedom thing, that's where it comes from, is being aware of all these different little tools. So blocking, batching, the 80-20 rule. Number 4, I love this one because this one has to do with interruptions. It is extremely costly when you're working on something to get interrupted. So, say I'm writing an email, or maybe I'm doing some creative writing, or maybe I'm filming this thing I'm filming right now. If someone interrupts me, it's going to totally wreck my flow state. It's going to totally derail my mind from what I was doing. And then it takes time to realign and get centered again back into what I was doing. In the book, what's the book? The 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss says it takes 2 minutes to answer an email, and it takes 20 minutes to clear that email from your thought patterns. So that's what happens to people all the time who check their email throughout the entire day, is that their mind is not fully present with the thing they're working on. So you need to start to get into a place where you can block out, like I like to do if I'm doing sales for the day and I'm like wearing my sales hat, I just do estimates all day and I don't deal with anything else. I'm just doing high level selling. I'm not doing production, a little here, a little this, a little that. Sales. Monday is all sales. I do 4 or 5 high impact estimates and book them. My job is to book revenue, right? That's a whole other thing. But the point I'm trying to make is I want to be uninterrupted. I want to be centered in one activity that I'm focused into. So creating a world, interruptions will destroy your work efficiency. So put your phone on silent, shut your door, do whatever you need to not be distracted from the task at hand. Focus on one thing at a time in blocks with similar things batched together. Number 5, plan extra time for everything, right? So if I think that it's going to take me an hour to write a standard operating procedure, block 2. And I'm not even kidding. I often double the time. Or if I think it's going to take me, especially even with big initiatives, right? If I think I can film this video course in 6 months, block out 1 year. And, that's a hard thing to swallow from like an ego point of view, but learning to be realistic with results is a really interesting game, right? It's like we want to push ourselves. I don't want to just be slow and super slow and steady. I do want to get there as quickly as possible, but at the same time, I don't want to be unrealistic with what actually can get accomplished. And, kind of building on the compound effect, it's like we can be, how do we say this? It's like, the saying goes, we often underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years and overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year. And I don't know why it works that way, but it's like we tend to think we can get more done in 1 year, but then we always tend to get more, when we actually stay consistent with something, we actually end up making a lot more progress than we could have imagined in longer time horizons. And I think that has to do with like the compound effect. But you want to plan extra time for everything. So if you think your estimates are going to take an hour, give yourself an hour 15, right? If you think, just plan for that extra slack time. Number 6, implementations. So have specific company and personal implementations you wish to attain and work on specifically. And that's really what strategic planning is all about, which we're going to speak in depth in another training. But strategic planning is all about knowing what are the key implementations you're focused on for time periods, whether it's a quarter, a month, a year, or whatever. Number 7 is always keeping your vision top of mind, never forgetting and getting pulled into the drudgery of the day-to-day tasks, and always remembering the higher purpose of why you do what you do, right? Especially when things are really meticulous and monotonous and just like not that fun, like I don't really want to be doing this. Always knowing that these actions have been thought through and they are leading to a higher result. There's some higher thing, right? If you want to build your franchise up to $1 million, or you want to get it to 2 million, or you want to get it to $3 million, once it's there, there's a whole type of life that you can live. If you're running a $3 million franchise or even a $2 million franchise making $400,000 a year or whatever, I don't know how much you have to figure out those numbers, but what kind of a life are you living to do that? So then when you're actually in the drudgery of building up this business to get it to where you want it, you know why you're doing it, right? You know what type of team you're and what type of a leader you're growing into. So keeping your vision top of mind, wake up each morning with the drive and the excitement, be passionate about what you do, help your team be the best versions of themselves, and always be looking to the next level. Keep that vision on the expansion. So right things only. Knowing the right thing, choosing the right thing to work on will make all the difference with being busy versus being productive. So there's a difference between being productive and being busy. I have seen, watching painters my whole life, I have seen some very, very busy painters that are not productive. They do everything in the wrong order. They're not batching their tasks. They have all these switching costs. They're always getting interrupted, pulling out their phone, right? That's on the painter's level. But jump up to the manager's level, the franchise level, the leadership level, and it gets more and more amplified every time. So knowing what are the right things and what are the wrong things, it's what priority management is all about. And those are the main things I wanted to cover. There's a few more actually. In the Excel template, I made a couple of extra tabs. One is the create a not doing list. So just a list of things or habits that you wish to break and just plot them in, things I am not going to be doing anymore. In another video, I speak to things that you shouldn't be doing once you start running a bigger franchise pretty quickly, things like going to the paint store or multiple crew visits a day. These would be things I am not going to be doing. Number 11, scheduling time for professional and personal development, or another word for education. Make sure you are always allocating time for education. So watching this video, this is allotted time you've put aside for education. Creating your priority management and designing your life plan, that is an education thing. You have to put time aside for that education. Another one would be plan for 85% effort. So as much as it's great to have the attitude, I'm going to give it my all 100% all the time, realistically, we don't do that, most people. And so plan for 85% effort. And I find that this principle goes really well with the non-interruptions kind of attitude. It's as much as I'm going to try not to get interrupted or distracted, to actually always be like that is very difficult. And same with always planning more time than you think is necessary. That really ties well into we don't usually give it the full 100%. If we gave it the 100%, we could get it done in the time we thought. But since that often doesn't happen, planning more time is necessary. That is the basics. Once you have done all of this and you have really built yourself a nice plan, now all you got to do is execute the plan. So review the plan, audit the plan, get your coach to review the plan, and now you just got to do it. And, I think this process takes 3 to 4 hours at the start of the year to really deep dive into it. You can make micro adjustments as you go throughout the year. And if you're doing this, you are ahead of 95% of the population, right? Straight up, you're becoming a ninja with this stuff. And the beauty is that once you start to really grasp it, you can teach other people on your team how to do it as well. And the more efficient you make them, the more effective they are at managing their priorities and delivering on their results, which are all tailored to their employment agreements and their responsibilities. Everyone's just more effective, and it's a lot more fun when everyone's more effective. So enjoy this process, and that's it for this training. We'll see you in the next one.